My name's Elena Anderson. I'm the lead of the Orange County group of Moms Demand Action. I want to thank everybody who came here today and all of the volunteers and leaders who helped to prepare this vigil. Thank you for coming to this vigil to honor the 20 children, first graders just 5 and 6 years old, and 6 educators who were killed 7 years ago today, and the 700,000 people in America who have died by gun violence since that day, the 100 people whose lives are ended by guns every single day in America, the hundreds more who are wounded, those who are killed in mass shootings and those who are killed in everyday gun violence, including suicide, homicide, unintentional shootings, police violence, domestic violence, and hate crimes. We honor those loved ones. We honor the survivors. We reflect on the diversity of Orange County and the profound effect gun violence has in all of our communities, admittedly in different ways. I find myself asking, how did we end up here? How has this gone on for so long with what often feels like nothing being done to stop it? For me, it was being a post-Columbine teacher in 1999 with a lesson plan and an escape plan. It was the largest mass murder in Orange County history on October 11th, 2011 at Salon Meritage in Seal Beach, less than a mile from my house. It was Sandy Hook on December 14th, 2012. It was the moment I saw in the newspaper that a group called Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America had started the day after, and that they had organized a demonstration for common sense gun laws right here in Orange County. All of you have a moment that brought you here, whether in your personal life or in national news. I thank you for your activism, which includes coming to a vigil in the middle of December, when I'm sure you have a long list of other things to do. In the words of Nelba Marquez Green, whose daughter Anna Grace died in the Sandy Hook massacre, I feel the weight of 1,000,000 grief-struck mothers in my soul. I can't outrun it or ignore it. I have decided to make it a seat and whisper, I am not afraid of you. Teach me how to use what I hear and understand to be helpful. She believes that compassion and connectedness are essential components to advocacy. It's the compassion and connectedness that I've found among the mothers and others, as we call them, in Moms Demand Action that has kept me going. Together we grieve, momentarily. There's hardly any time in between anymore. And then, as we say, we keep going. That perseverance has brought some success. It's impossible to measure the number of lives saved, but we do know that in states with strong common sense gun laws, there are fewer gun deaths. My friend Richard Martinez's son, Christopher, was killed in the UC Santa Barbara Isla Vista rampage on May 23, 2014. Richard harnessed the pain of his son's death into the slingshot of humanity that Nelba wrote about. The moment he screamed, "Not one more!" at the press conference, it became the battle cry of the gun violence prevention movement. Not one more. For Richard, it just wasn't a moment. It was the day he joined the movement. And as a result of Richard's and others' advocacy, California passed a red flag law 4 months after his son died. Also known as a gun violence restraining order, the law was the first in the country to allow family, as well as law enforcement, to present evidence to a judge that someone is a danger to themselves or others. If the claims are ruled valid, the guns are temporarily confiscated. 17 states and Washington, D.C. now have red flag laws. A lot of those up since the Parkland students became activists in the last year. A red flag law passed through Congress, but is stalled in the Senate. It's been 7 years since Sandy Hook, and our federal government hasn't been able to get common sense gun laws passed. That's why Richard continues his fight nationwide, state by state. That's why in Moms Demand Action, we work on educating the public about responsible gun ownership, safe storage, and adults' responsibility in preventing children's unintentional deaths by gun. That's why we work on changing the culture around guns in America, whether it be by boycotting companies in open carry states until they stop allowing guns into their stores, or using data to prove that the solution to the epidemic of gun violence is not more guns. I am lucky that I can do this work. I am lucky that I started it with my then 2-year-old daughter at my side. I always hold her in my heart. And I'm lucky that when I march, I can hold her still small 9-year-old hand in mine. I think of those less fortunate. My friend Nicole Williams, whose son Tony was murdered on November 30th, 2017, and how she now leads a Moms Demand Action group in South Los Angeles. My friend Tamiko Brewster, whose son Denari was murdered on New Year's of 2011, who now works with other survivors in Moms Demand Action. I think of Richard. I don't know how they do it, but I think of them and of so many of you here today. We all think of you, and we honor you with action. Thank you for being here today and letting us share this space with you. Now I'd like to thank the Costa Mesa City Council for offering to host our National Gun Violence Vigil this year. In June, the city of Costa Mesa became the first city in Orange County to proclaim National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We are grateful for our partnership and hope other cities will follow their example. Mayor Foley, will you say a few words?
Thank you. Alanis asked why are we here? So I am here because I'm a mom. I am the wife of a teacher. I'm the wife of a teacher who has metal detectors for his students to come into class. I am the mom of a son at UCSB. And I have many friends whose children were at UCSB during that time, very, very scary time. A good friend of mine, Debbie Wamba, her daughter, she's a Costa Mesa resident, her daughter was in the sorority that was being targeted, and fortunately those young women were trained to keep the door locked. They had a password, but that's the world that we have become to live in now, where you have to have such protections at home in your place where you live. I'm here also because in Costa Mesa we've had our own incidents of violence with regard to domestic abuse and individuals stalking out their victims near school campuses and on school campuses. And so this issue, it touches all of us in some way. And I'm also here because even just today, when I have a heightened sense of concern about these issues because I was planning to be here to speak today, my son was going to a concert in LA, and it's a big festival. And I couldn't help but feel very concerned about his and his friends' safety while at that concert. And we just shouldn't have to feel like this at home, at play, and in our community. As I went around the morning of holiday activities in the city of Costa Mesa, and I saw all the beautiful young children and families playing and enjoying the holiday events, I had in my heart and in my mind those young students, same age as many of the kids that I saw playing today, 6 and 7-year-olds running around, and those students who we lost at Sandy Hook. in that, 7 years ago, I was on the school board. We made many changes to our school campuses after that incident. We put up fences, we put in more security around the area in front. And I often said, and I still say, you probably can't fence out what might come, because it's sometimes people we know who are allowed to come in and who are on campus already. So we make changes to securitize our facilities, and sometimes all that does is prevent the people who we want to enjoy these spaces from being able to access them. So what do we need to do? We need reform. And I'm so appreciative of Moms Demand Action and all of the organizations across America that are working very hard. I'm appreciative that the Democratic House passed the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2019 by a vote of 263 to 158. And yes, clap for that. This is an important act that I hope that the Senate can take up and vote on and approve, because it did an important thing. It closed the boyfriend loophole, as they call it, which excludes people convicted of stalking or abusing a non-spouse partner from the ability to obtain firearms. So these are the kind of protections that we need to continue to push for in our community. At this point, I would like to just take a moment, and as Catherine, if you would come up, and because really this is today about Sandy Hook, and I know we're going to have some speakers after, but I would like to take a moment to just think about the names of the children and the 7 adults that were killed at Sandy Hook, and we're going to ring the bell for each name and think about them for a moment. And then I encourage you to go online. I've read many stories today of the families and the survivors of those victims, and please take time to read those stories. It's not any different than reading the stories about 9/11 and the stories about many of our war veterans. We need to keep reading those stories and keep remembering. So at this time, please remember Charlotte Bacon, age 6. Daniel Barden, age 7. Rachel Davina, a teacher. Olivia Rose Ingle, age 6. Josephine Gay, age 7. Dawn Lafferty Hochsprung, the principal. Dylan Hockley, age 6. Madeline Hsu, age 6. Catherine Hubbard, age 6. Chase Kowalski, age 7. Nancy Lanza, a mom. Jesse Lewis, age 6. Anna Marquez Green, age 6. James Mattioli, age 6. Grace McDonald, age 7. Anne Marie Murphy, a teacher. Emil Parker, age 6. Jack Pinto, age 6. Noah Posner, age 6. Caroline Praviti, age 6. Jessica Ricos, age 6. Avieli Richmond, age 6. Lauren Rousseau, another teacher. Mary Sherlock, the school psychologist. Victoria Soto, another teacher. Benjamin Wheeler, age 6. And Allison Wyatt, age 6. Please keep those beautiful humans in your hearts and minds today as we remember. And I also want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Stevens for joining us here today. And I want to thank our city staff. Evis Torres in particular, for all of the help that they gave to organize the event in partnership with Moms Demand Action. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Foley. At this time, we would like to recognize the families of victims and survivors in attendance. If you are comfortable, please raise your hand to be acknowledged. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is my friend Bethany Webb. Bethany's life was forever changed on October 12, 2011, when a man walked into Salon Meritage in Seal Beach, armed with 3 guns and wearing a bulletproof vest, and opened fire.
On October 12, 2011, I got up and I went to my Sunrider school and I volunteered in the PTA. I rode my bicycle home. I was just you. I was just a normal person minding my own business, doing my own day. I turned on the TV and there was a break. It showed my sister's shop that she'd worked at for 10 years. I'd been to 100 times. 9 people shot, 6 dead at that time. This is Laura. This is her wedding picture 4 months before she was murdered. I tried to call my mom, but she wasn't picking up. And I called Laura, I called my mom. Nobody was picking up their phones. And I realized my mom had been out of town for 2 weeks. My mom has nails done. My mom would have gone to get her nails done by Laura. And it dawned on me the reason why my mom was not picking up the phone. The total number that day would be 8 dead. These are the 8. These are the 8 that died. Laura Lee Webb, my sister. Laura's best friend for 20 years, Victoria Buzo, who was at that wedding 4 months before. Michelle Fournier, whose ex was in court with her the day before in a child custody battle, got 50%, and that wasn't enough. Christy Wilson, another employee, and Randy Fannin, the owner. And the description of gentleman is who Randy Fannin was. All friends of mine. Michelle Fast had gone into the shop for the first time to get lightens in her hair. Miss Kundos had gone in, was under a hair dryer. David Cowett had pulled up in the parking lot to go into the restaurant next door. He was sitting in that when the shooter went out to get in his car, saw him, and he died there. My mom was shot. She was, however, the sole person to be shot that day and survive. I was just you. They were just in a hair salon. This is just anybody, anytime. I'm a mom. 6 months later, Christopher Darner. Remember, Christopher Darner was targeting police from Los Angeles Police Department's kids. 3 of those kids went to school with my son Ryder. My son's school was being patrolled because they were afraid a shooter was going to come. I can't tell you the terror when you know that it is possible, that it could be you. It's not just people on TV. It could be you. It could be your kids. It could be your sister. It could be your mom. Enough. Not one more.
Thank you, Bethany. We're honored to have Reverend Dr. Sarah Halverson-Cano, pastor of Fairview Community Church in Costa Mesa, and co-president of the Newport-Mesa Irvine Interfaith Council with us today. Reverend Sarah and I were both at that very first Moms Demand Action demonstration in Orange County, just a few months after the shooting at Sandy Hook. And today she will share a few words with us.
When my path first intersected with Moms Demand Action at that event back in 2013, I was not a mom. I gathered with hundreds of people in Irvine to deliver a message, you might have been there too, to pressure then House Speaker John Boehner to focus on gun control as a priority. Flash forward 6 years, and I'm a mother of 2. And now I can say I am a mom who demands action. Unfortunately, it feels like, besides the fact that I now have 2 kids, not a lot has changed. I know our organizers will tell me differently. That was the beginning of Moms Demand Action in Orange County, and since then this chapter has grown exponentially. In fact, it's grown across the entire country. There have been victories, I know that, but it feels like things have just gotten worse. We can't seem to make it a week without hearing news of an awful shooting somewhere. When the terror of the Sandy Hook attack occurred 7 years ago, we were gutted. Now it just feels like our guts have been scraped out. Is there anything left? Our nerves are almost gone. We've become so numb to the pain. And yet with each shooting, we put ourselves back in the shoes of those who are there, and we are terrified again. We become the parents of the dead, the sisters. And we wonder how we might possibly go on if that were our son or our daughter needlessly killed. When I was asked to speak, I thought I would focus most of my thoughts on Sandy Hook and relate them to what happened here at Estancia when the threat of a mass shooting shook our community to the core. But perhaps I should have known that another tragic shooting would occur, probably more than I'm even aware of. So I dared to look it up, and there have been 11 mass shootings this month. It is December 14th. Just 4 days ago, a particularly disgusting act of domestic terrorism occurred when shooters fueled by hatred and anti-Semitism targeted a kosher market in New Jersey. First, a police detective was shot and killed, and then 2 shooters targeted the Jewish market with the express aim to kill the Jewish people inside. They used an AR-15 style weapon, which one of them fired as he entered, a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun, which the second carried into the store, a 9mm Ruger semi-automatic gun, and a 9mm Glock 17. Inside the killer's stolen U-Haul across the street was a pipe bomb and a 5th gun with a homemade silencer and homemade device to catch the shells. I'm told the U-Haul also had ballistic panels designed to resist damage. They were ready for battle. It's hard to hear this. It's hard to read about this, to fathom that anybody could plot this kind of hate, driven murder of people they don't even know. We're dealing with terror on multiple levels here. Whenever we witness anti-Semitism or Islamophobia turned into hate crimes, there's this added layer of disturbance. It goes unsaid, but I will say it anyways, on behalf of the Newport-Mesa Irvine Interfaith Council, that we are appalled. We are shocked, we are disturbed, and we are deeply saddened that these murders and these shootings have occurred, terrorizing not only those present and the survivors, their family members, those who were on the scene, but also, once again, crippling our Jewish brothers and sisters with fear, as we live with the reality that anti-Semitism is still alive and well. We know that here in our community. Being Jewish could cost one their life. So we stand with the Jewish community in our community, and as the Interfaith Co-President, I stand also on their behalf. I spoke with 2 rabbis who wanted to be present today, but Shabbat keeps them physically away. However, they are with us in spirit, both thankful for the commitment of solidarity and with the challenge that we must respond not with hate, but with responsibility. Because how can it be that in these 7 years since the needless tragedy at Sandy Hook that we have not eradicated gun violence? How can this be? It is shocking. It seems that we've only seen a rise. A synagogue here, a mosque there, a Christian church, a Sikh gurdwara, and countless numbers of schools and other places. Nobody should be targeted because of their faith, and no child should be targeted because of the pain it would cost a community. My daughter started TK, transitional kindergarten, this year. She's the youngest at her school. And the majority of my questions since starting school have been, how are they going to keep my daughter safe? Wondering how they plan for intruders, and how my sweet little girl, Cinderella, you saw her earlier, could possibly understand all of this. I saw Mayor Foley's post before school on December 3rd. It was reassuring because she was praising the coordination and quick response of law enforcement and all involved, but I instantly had a pit in my stomach. I didn't know which school. She didn't post that. I didn't know if those who made the threat had actually been apprehended. I only knew I was taking my daughter to school to drop her off, even when all I wanted to do was hold her close. I seemed to be the only parent at our school aware of the near disaster, so I went into the office to ask. They were nearly as clueless as I was, but they told me it was at Estancia High School, and I didn't need to worry. Well, I worried. Over the next few hours, I would comfort a congregant who kept her son home from school that day, afraid to send him, even if the threat was gone. She and other parents were texting info as it came in. We all learned it was a hoax, but a terrifying joke that left everyone in this district shaken, knowing that in an instant, we could be Sandy Hook. So yeah, it's hard to feel like we've made progress in these last 7 years. What seemed like the most atrocious thing that could happen should have mobilized a nation to ensure that it would never happen again. And instead, we're keeping our kids home from school, from a place where they can learn and spend time with their friends, because we could be next. These are dark days. It seems no one is immune from the pain or the fear. In my tradition, we are observing the time of Advent. And while the culture around us would say that Christmas is the happiest time of the year, all about presents and parties, Advent tells us to stop, to wait, to prepare, to look at the darkness around us, to name it, and then seek out the light. Friends, we know the darkness. We know there's a lot of angles to play. You and I have heard them all. An obsession over the Second Amendment, an assertion that people kill people. None of that's going to make this go away. It is deeply disturbing that people kill people. It is deeply disturbing that there is such a hatred of those different than ourselves that people will go to intense intentions to destroy people of different religious traditions. It is deeply disturbing that the magic of childhood is abruptly disrupted by the need to prepare our children so that they can survive should someone else want otherwise. This is all deeply disturbing. There is darkness here, and there are multiple layers to this disease in America. We must work on the why people kill people, but we already have the ability to eradicate one of the hows. Oh, sure, they say they can use another way. We've all heard that argument, and maybe they will, but we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility as a nation to control the guns that are on the loose. We have a sacred responsibility. 7 years later, we owe it to those children. We owe it to the teachers. We owe it to the parents. We owe it to the thousands who are grieving the loss of their children and their families in these 7 years since. We owe it to ourselves. And we owe it to our own children. There is darkness among us. The darkness attempts to overtake me, to numb me, and make me powerless. It attempts to silence me, to wear me down, to force me to sit in my fear or disconnect from reality because I cannot fully bear it. We all have compassion fatigue because we cannot fully feel all this pain and also go about our daily lives. So we try to stuff it in or shove it out, shrug it off, but the darkness remains. So in Advent, we sit. We acknowledge the darkness. We name it, and then we look for the light. We're just completing our second week of Advent. Each week we search for the flickers of light in the darkness. We began by lighting the candle of hope, recognizing that even when all seems hopeless, when the darkness appears to have overcome us, it's that tiny little flame that sustains us. Hope. Hope is enough to lead us through dark places. It lights our path to find the way out, even if we cannot see that way in the moment. Hope will see us through. Then we lit the candle of peace. Perhaps ironic in a world that seems so shattered by violence, where peace seems like a mere ideal as a human race that we will never attain. And yet we light that flame anyway. We light that flame in us to work towards it, to let hope lead us to the peace that passes all of our understanding, to let it take residence in us, even when everything else seems chaotic and out of control. Investing in peace, working for peace, waging peace. It is the only way to combat the violence, to work against the darkness that will seek to overtake us. And tomorrow, we will light the candle of joy. Joy is coming. Joy is possible. Joy is possible even in the darkness. Survivors know this because they have witnessed the depths of the darkness and often find themselves in shock when they realize they are able to feel joy again. To have your heart ripped open and smile again, that is a miracle in itself. The light of joy will help to light our nights. And finally, we Christians will light the candle of love. And for us, the only way we can get to Christmas is to invest in the hope and the peace and the joy and the love, to be transformed by love that is so powerful that we believe that the darkness cannot overcome us. But we have to love ourselves. We have to love our world. We have to be compelled by the force of this love so that we will not succumb to hatred and not let it have any place among us. Yes, we are called to shine light in the darkness, to kindle these flames and let it transform us. We all understand the complexities of this disease in our nation. All of us know that guns alone kill people. But none of us believe that guns alone kill people. But all of us know that killing machines are made for one thing: killing. And put in the hands of a wrong person, one who wants to kill, those machines will do their job. So we must do ours. Our job is to shine light in the darkness, to be emboldened by the light of those flickering flames, to shine our light in a darkness with America's obsession with guns, to walk out in the light before us. We know that it isn't us alone. We're not individuals here, and yet each of us as an individual has a responsibility and a light to shine. We will light up the darkness that seeks to overcome our world, even as it feels it's 7 years too late. But it won't stop us. Our light of hope is lit. Our light of peace burns among us. Joy will come. Love will fuel the way. So moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and children and teens and everyone in between, let us demand action together. Emboldened by a knowledge that we are not alone. Encouraged by a promise that comes off the lips of an angel, do not be afraid. Good news will come. And if we are afraid, let us hold one another. Let us comfort one another in our pain. Let us light each other's candles again, because let's face it, sometimes we need to rekindle our own flames. As I am reminded and heartened, we are not in this alone. As the years have passed, the movement has grown, and we are not alone. Ultimately, that's what my faith tradition celebrates come Christmas. We prepare ourselves by looking at the darkness, but we celebrate that the light is among us. God is with us. We name that presence Emmanuel, to hold the pain, to comfort in the night, to light the darkness and lead us into a world where peace, hope, joy, and love abound. So whether or not you identify with my faith or any faith, I invite you to be encouraged by the light among us, to seek it out, to find it even when it seems hard, to look for it in one another, to offer your light to someone when it feels like they're being overwhelmed with the darkness. We are not alone. And in my tradition, we say, Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sarah. When you arrived, there were cards available for you to write down the names of those you have lost to gun violence so that we can honor them by saying their names. If you still have a card you would like us to read, please pass it forward. Does anybody else still need a card? So we have candles, and we have a lot of wind. But it's the light in our hearts that will continue to shine, even as that little flame on your candle will blow out. So at this time, volunteers will distribute the candles. Evis has them there in the back, under the chair there. And Reverend Sean will come and say a few words. And while we light the candles, we'll also have a bell ringing.
I think in this climate it sort of makes sense that there's a lot of wind blowing to try to keep candles out, but we're not going to let that happen, are we? Let's take a candle and remember that, when we light one small light, it starts to illuminate the darkness. We remember that we're not alone. And that for all of us that are concerned with gun violence, it's up to us to light, to shed the light, as Reverend Sarah said. Because we are the lights of hope when others might give up. As the founder said, it's our connection and our compassion that light the way, that keep us going to know that we're not alone. Let us begin with lighting our candles.
So sometimes it really is the thought that counts. This apparently is one of those times. It might just be, there's also matches, but as soon as the flame was lit, then the flame disappeared, so do that. Okay, so now the cool young kids, do you know what they do? They turn on the lights on their phone, the flashlight, and they hold it up and that shines. If you would rather hold up your unlit candle in real life, but you're, symbolically.
So we're going to ring this bell for 1 minute to remember all those who have been affected by gun violence. You want to come on up? Okay, you want to do it there? Those who have been killed, those who have been wounded, and those who are grieving, and those who have been witnesses, as well as entire communities traumatized by gun violence. And we think especially of Max, of Corey Menden, of Mitch, and of Michael on Valentine's Day, 2017, and my own cousin, Chad Chaussee.
Laura Webb, Victoria Buzo, Randy Fannin, Michelle Fournier, Christy Wilson, Lucia Condas, Michelle Fast, David Coet, Hattie Stratz, my mom, was shot but survived, but she gets a bell anyhow. And can I say I went to a gun rally this last week in D.C., and I met moms from cities that kids don't make the news. Inner cities, a mom who had twin 19-year-olds killed within 6 weeks of each other that don't make the news. So keep in your hearts the mass shootings, but keep in your hearts the moms that every day, probably every hour in our cities, lose children or almost lose children to gun violence.
Gun violence affects everyone, no matter how you pray or how you live. Whether you're a devout Christian, Muslim, Sikh, or atheist, whether you're pagan, Buddhist, agnostic, or Jewish. It doesn't even matter which political party you belong to. And of course, as Sandy Hook taught us, it doesn't matter even how old you are. Gun violence affects us all. But when I think about organizations like Moms Demand Action and people coming together, I see people of all faiths and of no faith, of all political parties and of no political party, and all ages. And I just feel very grateful. Because one of the ways that we counteract gun violence is coming together no matter our beliefs or our politics. Every time we gather, every time a voice is raised up, every time a candle is lit, for every bell rung, we are saying as one, not one more. Not one more. That's what it's going to take. Everyone coming together. Today we're joined by voices and vigils across the nation and the world, and we're helping our nation to wake up, to feel that light, shining that light, to wake up. And that's a tremendous act of love. So before we get to our final prayer, I invite you to turn to someone next to you and thank them for this act of love. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for raising your voice and awareness. Thank you for keeping this world safe and keeping hope alive. Go on, say thank you to someone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And because all of us worship differently, or not at all, I invite you this morning for our prayer to assume a posture of reverence that is comfortable for you. Let's just begin by taking some deep breaths. We've heard some heavy and yet hopeful words this morning. Let's take them in. And each of us has a different name for the holy. As you breathe, I invite you to name the holy for yourself in a way that's precious to you. That name might be specific. It might be Jesus, or it might be Allah, or it might be more broad. It might be love or family. I invite you to invoke that name that you honor. Call it into your heart as you breathe. Let it open you. Let it give you strength. Let it humble you with its awesomeness. Let it connect you to all that are here. And let us pray. Holy Presence, come to us here in our hearts. Open us up to be lights in the world. Holy Presence, come to those who are hurting from the loss and horror of gun violence. May they know that they are not alone. Holy Presence, we come here today to honor those whose light no longer shines, but whose memories will never be lost. Help us to honor those lights by ending gun violence in our homes, in our cities, our nation, and the world. We are grateful. We are grateful for everyone who refuses to forget, who toils day after day to bring an end to gun violence, all those who tell us that we are not alone. And for all these acts of love, we say thank you, and blessed be, shalom, salam, and amen. We all maybe have a light of some sort in our heart, in our hands. I invite you to turn that light off now, but to keep a flame in your heart, the light of hope, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Thank you all.
Thank you, Reverend Sean. Wiltshire, I didn't get to introduce you earlier, but she is the minister of the Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church and co-president of the Newport-Mesa Irvine Interfaith Council, and she gave us a wonderful, wonderful closing prayer. Thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate you standing out here in the wind and taking time out of your December 14th to remember those whose December 14ths will never be the same. Thank you.